Hello, everybody.
Howdy. We're going to have to start this video off with a checklist, so why don't you get the checklist and see if we've got what we need.
Okay.
M&M's?
M&M's?
Check.
Check.
Hot tea? Check.
Reference material?
Reference material? Check. Videos that we're going to be using? Check.
Talk from the beast?
Check. There's a new YouTuber out there who's defending Watchtower BS, and we're not going to give the name because it doesn't do any good, because he's disabled all the comments. So you can't go and challenge what he's saying. So when we're going to call him Dirty Magazine. So Dirty Magazine, you leave us no choice.
Yeah.
But to do it this way.
Plus, that was the third strike on our old channel, was someone informed one of the Jehovah's Witnesses that had a video that I used a clip from, and they gave us the copyright strike. So we're not going to let anyone have the opportunity to do that. So.
But his video that we was alerted to by our very good friend Jerry Jones, who, by the way, did a video on this, and through a phone conversation with Jerry, we decided to do a little bit more because we've got some other stuff that really shows what a liar this organization is, and what they print on jw.org, you know, the official website. In fact, when this guy starts his video, he says, it's right, it is practically right from the horse's mouth. Well, no, wait a minute. Is that the same as being a little bit pregnant?
Practically pregnant?
Practically pregnant? I mean, my goodness. I mean, but what's so funny is the way the guy goes through this video, like Watchtower, he does not hear what he's saying. He does not hear it, because when you watch it from the beginning to the end, the guy contradicts himself. Yeah.
He says, oh, we don't shun, but yet then he'll say something that actually proves, wait a minute, yeah, he is admitting they shun.
Yeah, but the thing is I've lost my note, doggone it. But what I was going to do is I was going to show from the Webster's Dictionary what the difference between shunning and fellowshipping is, and of course I don't have my note in front of me now, and I'm not sure what happened to it, so I'm just going to have to go off of memory. But the Webster's Dictionary says shunning basically is to avoid, stay away from. Now obviously there's no word in the dictionary that's disfellowshipping, so what you have to do is you have to get to the word fellowship, and fellowship has the idea and thought of camaraderie, especially in a religious setting. Associating. So obviously disfellowship would be just the opposite of fellowship. But I find
basically the same thing.
Yeah, but I find it interesting that when it comes to the mind of a Jehovah's Witness, they'll say, oh, we don't shun, because in the XJW community, this is a word that we all use. They do shun. They do shun. Shun, shun, shun all over the place. But yet Watchtower says, oh, we don't shun. But they do disfellowship. And so really, in their mind, in the mind of a Jehovah's Witness, they don't know how to separate the two. They don't realize that shunning is the same as disfellowshipping.
Yeah, and what is interesting is this Jehovah's Witness is trying to defend this, and he, talks about, oh, you see these YouTube videos all over the YouTube, and internet, and it's like, it's so easy to just shoot down this, because all of us know what really happens.
Yes, in fact, as he begins the video, he's reading the official statement right off of watchtower.org. Now, I really found this interesting after a conversation that we had last night. We actually Skyped with a soon-to-be ex-member, and he's very concerned because he's right at the next step of either disassociating himself, getting disfellowshipped, and he's very concerned because his wife's going to leave him if this happens. But notice the directive from Watchtower when they say, oh no, Jehovah's Witnesses don't shun. And I'm going to try to quote this a little bit. He says, the marriage relationship and normal family affection and dealings continue.
That's right from the jw.org website.
So if you're about ready to leave the kingdom hall and your mate threatens to divorce you because of that, they're actually going against the directive of Watchtower. Watchtower says the marriage relationship and normal affection and dealings continue. So when your mate threatens to divorce you if you leave the organization, they are actually going against the directive, and they're actually confirming that Watchtower does shun. So you might want to keep that in mind for a future reference.
Yes.
So, do we want to play part of this or just talk about what this knucklehead says?
Well, we can play a clip.
Okay, well, why don't we, what we're going to do is we're just going to skip through his reading of what's the official directive, but Kim and I found this very interesting at about the 3-minute 40-second mark. Okay? Because if you don't shun, then why do you do this?
Well, obviously the congregation has to be kept clean, because otherwise it would be seen that the congregation is being hypocritical when it comes to stating verses from the Bible which shun certain things. For example, such as sexual immorality or adultery or whatever, and that's just an example. Now, I remember when I first came to become one of Jehovah's Witnesses, it was before I was even baptized, was that a man and a woman in the congregation were disfellowshipped because they had committed adultery and basically caused quite a deal of pain to the spouses who were involved in that. Now, interestingly, even though they were disfellowshipped, they were actually still came to the meeting, even though they'd actually got married, and they were reserved an area in the some seats in the Kingdom Hall where they were allowed to sit, and they were there to get spiritual food from the meetings. Now, granted, they weren't allowed to go out on the preaching work, but they were allowed to attend the meetings. Now, this would show really that this is not really shunning, is it? It's keeping the congregation clean.
Okay, so just to reiterate Webster's dictionary in fellowship, the companionship and camaraderie characteristic of group solidarity, or the friendly exchange between individuals that spring from shared work, shared religious practices, a guild, association, fraternity, etc. Now, did you hear what he said? When you disfellowship, there is a reserved spot for you in the Kingdom Hall.
A penalty box?
It's like a penalty box. How is that not shunning? Because every Jehovah Witness in that Kingdom Hall right there and then that sees those that couple in the penalty box, they know absolutely to avoid them.
Well, what's interesting is right after this clip, he says, but this isn't shunning.
Yeah, but exactly.
But how many in the Kingdom Hall will go in that penalty box and talk to them?
Not a single one. Not a single one. And in fact, I'm going to relate a personal experience here. Being a ministerial servant at the time, there was a husband and wife that came into our Kingdom Hall. First time ever, I went up to this brother and said, "Hi, my name is Mike." And the first words out of his mouth were, "I'm disfellowshipped." I withdrew my hand. If that's not shunning, knucklehead, dirty magazine, then I don't know what is. You see, this is the reason why we have to keep YouTube videos coming, because we got knuckleheads like you misleading the entire world with your bullshit. Because see, notice when when he is giving his little experience relating that, there was a reserved area where they were allowed to sit, where they could get spiritual food from the meetings. But this is not really shunning. Really, notice that he cleverly did not say that while they're in the penalty box that other church members could speak with them. See, notice that's left out of this subject matter. So what this does is it leaves your viewer who's a non-Jehovah Witness that clicks on that YouTube video you got, it leaves the impression, oh, see, we don't shun.
So who's telling half-truths and lies?
Exactly. Now, I really love this point, and he actually states it again later, but I'm going to do this at this point. He continues by saying, he makes a statement, while they're disfellowshipped, they're not allowed to go into preaching work. Really? You lie. That is a bold-faced lie. Because the Watchtower Bible Tract Society went all the way to the Supreme Court to fight for everybody's right, not just Watchtower's right, but everybody's right to go from door to door preaching.
The elders may try to stop them and may not sanction their preaching work, but they can't stop them.
You can't stop them. Now, here's the thing. When Kim and I was in Cottonwood, Arizona, decades ago, there was a sister. Her name was Gladys. She was disfellowshipped. She professed to be of the anointed. Now, she would not come back to the organization until she got a public apology from the elders that, in her opinion, mistakenly or wrongfully disfellowshipped her. The whole congregation shunned her. Even though she professed to be a member of the anointed, we all avoided her. We all thought she was crazy. But you know what? You would go out in service, and here's Gladys going from door to door peddling watchtowers.
You'd see her.
You can't stop anybody from preaching.
You'd see her standing in front of the grocery store with magazines.
Holding up the magazines. So you lie to your viewing audience when you say, well, they're not allowed to go out in service. No. You went to the Supreme Court to fight for everybody's right to go in the public preaching work.
Just like we can make up tracts, trying to warn people not to get involved with Jehovah's Witnesses and can go from door to door. Because you fought for our supreme rights. Our rights in the Supreme Court.
You fought. So all I got to do, Dirty Magazine, is come up with a clever little track that says why you should avoid Jehovah's Witnesses, why you should not go to Jehovah Witness websites, and then show, like we're going to show later, why Jehovah's Witnesses are to be avoided. See, thank you, Jehovah's Witnesses, for fighting for our freedom to go from door to door and do this, but yet when you say they're not allowed to go from door to door, that's a lie. Yeah. Because they are allowed.
But I also want to mention, at the beginning of his video here, and we didn't have the clip in here, but we just wanted to mention it, that he's double talk. Because only those disfellowship for serious sins against Bible principles. Okay, our situation. Many of you know our situation. Erica J.W. Struggle has done how to disfellowship two people with zero proof.
Zero proof.
We never committed any gross sins. All we did was just ask questions. All we did is ask questions.
And my daughter was shunned just because she's related to me.
Our daughter and son-in-law at the beginning of this did absolutely nothing. But just because, they're our kids, they're shunned.
Yeah. So, you know what? Let's not argue over semantics. Let's not argue over shun and disfellowshipping. Because later in this video, he talks about those that were shunned and put out of the congregation for not conforming to Jehovah's standards. Hey, did you not read the account of the spies that visited Rahab just before Jericho was toppled down? Did she conform to Jehovah's standards before she was saved, or was she saved first and then conformed to the standards? Now who's talking out both sides of your mouth? See, you talk out of both sides of your mouth because you don't know. You have no comprehension of what the Bible says. You defend exactly what you know nothing about. We've got more.
Now, a disfellowship person may say, yes, we are being shunned, but really, whose fault is it that they are feeling that way? Is it because they have not conformed to Jehovah's standards, or is it because people are actually not giving them the chance to be reinstated? Now, speaking on the terms of hypocrisy here, a lot of the disfellowship people may say, oh, we're being shunned and this, this, that and the other. But really, are they not shunning Jehovah's Witnesses? At the same time, they are speaking out of their left side of their mouth, and whilst on the other hand, they're speaking out of their right side of their mouth, because they're saying that Jehovah's Witnesses shun. But in actual fact, it's normally the disfellowship person who is feeling put out by receiving the discipline, that they are actually shunning Jehovah's Witnesses instead. And you can see that by the enormous amount of videos on YouTube, which
oh my God.
Okay, so what does us doing YouTube videos and putting them all over the place have to do with us shunning Jehovah's Witnesses? Huh?
Wait a minute. Who deletes the comment sections? You or the apostates? See, the apostates welcome these discussions with Jehovah's Witnesses. Now let me demonstrate to the world at large, to the non-Jehovah Witness, how this works. Kim and I are disfellowshipping, but see, you're claiming that we are shunning the Jehovah's Witnesses with your funny little chuckle. Hi, Mom. Yeah, this is Mike. How are you? No. How have you been? Well, I'm good to hear that. I harvested a deer this past fall, and we're going to have a barbecue. We're going to barbecue some steaks this afternoon, and we would love to have you come over and enjoy a meal with us. What do you mean you can't? Well, I know I'm disfellowshipped, but on jw.org, I mean, have you not read where Watchtower says that normal family relationship... Don't interrupt me. No, Mom, listen. On jw.org, on the official website. No, I'm not talking apostate. Go to the website and check it out yourself. They say that normal family relationships can continue. Mom, when is the last time you had venison for a meal? I'm inviting you. Well, well, I'm really sorry that you feel that way. Because of your feeling that way, Mom, you've actually gone beyond what the official statement on jw.org states. She hung up on me. I don't believe it. She hung up. Can you believe him? My mother hung up on me.
Yeah.
See, you knucklehead, that was a very real scenario of what happens. You know why? Despite what your official jw.org says, we've got reference material. Do you remember studying this?
In
Keep
fact,
yourselves
I think
in
they just
God's
studied
love.
this not too long ago.
Now, this book was originally published in 2008. So it's only 7 years old. 7 years ago, they put this in the appendix, page 207, how to treat a disfellowship person. Now, keep in mind, Watchtower says on the official website, normal family relationships can continue.
Listen up, Dirty Magazine.
This is what they say, third paragraph down. Is strict avoidance really necessary? Yes, for several reasons. First, it's a matter of loyalty to God and His Word. So, this trumps the bullshit on jw.org when you say normal family relationships
So
can
who's
continue.
talking out of both sides of their mouth now?
See, this is what I'm saying, Kim, in the beginning of this video. The Jehovah Witness cannot defend what their theology is, especially when apostates can grab your own work, Watchtower, and contradict.
I bet he's not even seen that in the appendix, because what
Probably
witness
not.
goes back to the appendix of books?
But you know what? Watchtower knows it's there. But the world doesn't know it's there. So when a guy like this gets up and says, oh, no, we don't shun. In fact, it's the apostates that shun. No. Right from your own literature. Here's another quote from the 81 Watchtower, 915.
Page 29 to 30.
If a relative is disfellowship. Paragraph 19. Consequently, Christians related to such a disfellowship person living outside the home would strive to avoid needless association, keeping business dealings to a minimum. So, no, Mom, no. This is not a needless association. I need to know how my mom is doing. I need to know that she's okay. She hung up again. My goodness, she hung up again. I mean, come on, Dirty Magazine. Dirty Magazine. How can you sit there and have a YouTube channel? Because I just about tell you what's going to happen. I'll just about tell you what's going to happen. Watchtower, since you and I know Watchtower's watching our videos, they're going to see how much of a monkey's ass I can make out of them in YouTube channels like Dirty Magazine. And I'll tell you what, if every one of us apostates would go grab another one of his videos and do exactly what I'm doing, guarantee you, Watchtower's going to make that channel come down, and or if not, that guy's going to get disfellowshipped.
Especially since he has not only talks and videos and stuff like that, but stuff from their official site. And the thing is this book is from 2008.
It's only 7 years old.
It's on jw.org.
Yeah, it's on page 207. That's all you got to do. That book contradicts the official statement on jw.org. Okay. So we've got some more that we want to hear.
Now also on the jw.org website is actually a video about the prodigal son. Now, if you probably know the story, but for those who don't, the prodigal son is is a parable that Jesus gave in the scriptures. You'll find it in Luke chapter 15 and verse 11, where it says, "Then he said, a man had two sons, and the younger one said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that should come to me. So he divided his belongings between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all his things together and travelled to a distant country, and there squandered his property by living a debauched life. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine occurred throughout that country, and he fell into need. He even went and attached himself to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to herd swine. And he longed to be filled with the carob pods that the swine were eating, but no one would give him anything. Now when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired men have more than enough bread, while I am dying here from hunger? I will get up and travel to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Make me as one of your hired men. So he got up and went to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father caught sight of him and was moved with pity. And he ran and embraced him and tenderly kissed him. Then the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven, against you. I am no longer worthy of being called your son. But what did the father do? Did he shun his son that had just returned after having a debauched life? No, it was, but the father said to his slaves, Quick, bring out a robe, the best one, and clothe him with it, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. Also bring the fattened calf, slaughter it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead, but has come to life again. He was lost and has been found. And they started to enjoy themselves. Now I ask you, is that shunning? No. Now, and that is exactly how things are today.
And this is exactly how it's done today.
And this is where you make an ass out of yourself. And you make a mockery out of the Word of God. Because, see, this is exactly how it's done today. You go to the prodigal son and you show that the prodigal son's coming home, and And even before he steps on the dad's property, the dad's running out to welcome him with open arms. Okay? But yet, in the beginning of this video, you related a story that when you were first coming into Jehovah's Witness, there was this couple that committed adultery. Okay, adultery is a debauched thing in Watchtower language. This couple was living a debauched life. But what did you say? That there was an area reserved where they were allowed to sit and get spiritual help.
And they couldn't go out in the preaching work.
They couldn't go out in the preaching. You contradict yourself. This is what I said in another video. Do these people even hear what they're saying? Do they even listen? You say when I first came in, there was a couple and there was a reserved area. They were disfellowshipped. They were living a debauched life. And then you go right to the prodigal son and say, and this is exactly how it's done today.
There's no shunning.
There's no shunning. And those ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that do want to come back, everybody knows damn well that 6 months to a year has to pass. And in fact, why don't you get yourself acquainted with Mark and Cora's story? If I remember correctly, it was 3 years for them. That's not welcoming back people with open arms like you tried to portray with the prodigal son. Immediately, the father ordered a banquet. The father didn't wait 6 months. The father didn't wait a year. In the Mark and Cora's case, they didn't even wait 3 years. It was an immediate acceptance back. So, my good man, you're a liar.
Yeah. And now, before we stop it and go to part 2, what I want to do is I want to read from this God's Love book a little bit more on page 207. How should we treat a disfellowship person? The Bible says, quit mixing in company with anyone called a brother that is a fornicator or a greedy person or an idolater or a reviler or a drunkard or an extortioner, not even eating with such a man.
But didn't the dad in the story of the prodigal son do exactly that? The Bible says he lived a debauched life. And yet the minute the son came home, he was eating a meal with him.
Regarding everyone that does not remain in the teaching of the Christ, we read, never receive him into your homes or say a greeting to him, for he that says a greeting to him is a sharer in his wicked works. So does that make the father of the prodigal son a sharer in his wicked works?
Well, let me just ask this question. When that prodigal son came home and they walked into their Sunday synagogue meeting, how do you think the synagogue felt? Do you think they welcomed him back with open arms just as much as the dad did? The only one that did not welcome the prodigal son back was his greedy brother.
We do not have spiritual or social fellowship with disfellowshipped ones. The Watchtower of September 15th, 1981, page 25 stated, a simple hello to someone can be the first step that develops into a conversation and maybe even a friendship. Would we want to take that first step with a disfellowshipped person?
See, you can't even say hello. See, this is what really aggravates me about these Jehovah's Witnesses when they try to defend their own bullshit. They can't do it because Watchtower has printed so much in the past that contradicts even what they've got on jw.org. But you know what? There's something that's even more sinister, more dark,
disturbing,
and even more disturbing.
So we'll go to part 2. We'll get Mikey some M&Ms and calm him down, and we'll go to part 2. So stay tuned.